All right, Danny. It's been about 5 years since we've last seen Michael Myers.
It's been 5 years too long.
Too long. Has it been too long? We left off with the resurrection, so maybe we're done with Michael Myers at this point.
Let him rest.
Let him rest in peace. I say that after H2O, but here we are. Who owns Michael Myers at this point? We're still under Dimension Films.
Still under Dimension. The Weinsteins still own them.
Oh, Jesus.
It's remake time, baby!
That's all we're making now is remakes. Comic book movies are coming.
When was the first remake of like the slashers? Was it Leatherface in 2003?
Psycho, right? Psycho was like 98, and
yeah, okay.
It was in the midst of the new horror era, but
they're coming.
They're starting to come because now what else do we do? We're not getting Paranormal Activity, I don't think, for another few years. I think that was
which was the independent film that beat Blair Witch.
Right, but that's when the transition happens of getting out of the slasher era and we start going into, for right now, we're at the remake stage.
It's remake season.
Who do we go to for a remake of Halloween? We need something to revitalize the franchise of Halloween. Resurrection was awful and people know it.
Terrible. We hated it.
A terrible movie. Where do we go for
and just give it fresh stuff? Because it's a remake, but we don't want a cookie cutter remake, do we? Right. We don't want an exact replica.
No, we don't, and we don't want the MTV era stuff because we know that doesn't work.
That's
Resurrection, H2O. So where do we go? What do we do? Do we want edgier?
We want edgy.
Do we want dark?
We want dark.
Do we want it bloody?
We want it bloody.
Okay, so
you go out and you get the hottest, bloody, dark, edgy director right now, and that direct musician, but as Lance pointed out, was not how he started.
No, actually, in the 80s, before he started and joined White Zombie, his first band, he was actually on the production of Pee-wee's Playhouse. Not sure what he did. I don't remember if he was a PA or a showrunner or what exactly, but he was behind the scenes of that show. So he has been on set. He's done quite an interesting show with Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yeah, I'll say.
If you watch that as a kid, it's totally different when you watch it as an adult. There's some interesting
innuendos,
humor, very odd stuff. But here we are. We got Rob Zombie. He knows how to make a film. Some films we like. If you know anything about House of a Thousand Corpses, his first major film, it went through hell and high water to be made and produced, which maybe someday we'll talk about that.
I would love to.
Yeah, because there's a whole bunch of lost footage on that movie.
Well, that movie was terrifying for me when I watched it.
And imagine if you had ever seen the N17 or X-rated cut of it.
Really? Wow.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so we got Rob Zombie. We're doing a remake. Danny, you want to give us our pumpkin spice latte of Rob Zombie's Halloween?
Absolutely. Rob Zombie's Halloween, the pumpkin spice latte is a retelling and or remake of the original John Carpenter and Deborah Hill's Halloween from 1978. The characters will be the same. The premise will be the same, maybe a little bit more incorporating what we knew from Halloween 2, but it is a retelling of the traditional horror film that was Halloween. We have a Michael Myers who is actually going to be shown as a child and what he went through. So there is two parts of this movie. There is a young Michael Myers and there's adult Michael Myers. So young Michael Myers, we get to see him in school and all the things that he went through as a kid and what he did. More so than we got in the original, where we do see young Michael Myers, but we just see him really kill his sister. This one, we get a little bit more as to what he went through and what led him to be there, and then the eventual commitment, them committing him into Smith Grove, and then adult Michael Myers, who is going to, of course, since it's a retelling of the original, going to break out and going to look for and stalk Laurie Strode, who he knows and finds out is his sister, and we know it's his sister the entire time. Michael Myers is back in Haddonfield on the hunt for Laurie Strode and anyone who gets in his way. That is Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Okay, and with that, there's a lot of split fans on this movie.
There are a lot of split fans on this movie.
Yes, it's not controversial, really. It's just
you can be a fan of this movie and still be a respected sort of fan in the Halloween franchise.
Yeah,
you could totally be a fan of this movie. There's nothing. I won't say that there's nothing wrong, because that's the wrong thing. There are things wrong with this movie, but none of it is none of it is how it's shot. None of it is the capability of the director or the crew. None of it is that. It is a well done movie. It is done with some very capable actors. I think what people end up drawing the line is that this movie challenged a lot of what they loved and appreciated about Michael Myers.
Absolutely. That's what I would say about it as well. Is I think you'll probably talk about Rob Zombie's knowledge of Halloween and where Michael kind of came from and all this kind of stuff. But what this movie actually did for me was make me realize what I love so much about the franchise prior to this movie. One thing I will say, I'll probably say it quite often in this show and the next one, is this movie, Rob Zombie's horror film, Halloween horror film, is not a bad movie. It's a great movie to watch. It's a really good horror film. It's not Halloween to me. It's not what I want with Michael Myers and Halloween and the franchise, but it's still good. There's a lot of good to it. What it does is expands, and what happens when you expand a material, it becomes super light and spread out, and that's what happens is we're stretching material here. And unfortunately, we get this crazy huge amount of origin for Michael Myers. We go into his lifestyle back home, and his mom, who's a stripper, who's played by Sherry Moon Zombie, who is an actress.
The last name is not a coincidence. That is Rob Zombie's wife.
Yes. The family dynamic, and what it really does, the whole film actually, is sets up Michael as a sympathetic character, I believe. It does talk about...
Sure.
If you watch Michael's dynamic at home, he's a sweet boy. He's got this edge to him where he does this weird shit and kills animals, but we don't know how long he's been in this dynamic at his home, right? His dad is violent.
Well, it's his stepdad.
It's his stepdad, Ronnie White, I believe is his name.
Ronnie, which is kind of, I think they were trying to go with Lonnie, but no, Ronnie, just a new guy.
Yeah.
Played by William Forsythe, who's terrifying, and Dick Tracy as Flat Top, and other movies. Obviously, he's very good. He was in The Devil's Reach. Well, first of all, everyone who's in this movie, almost everyone, has worked with Rob Zombie in his previous two films. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, getting to obviously Sherry Moon, but almost everyone, but mostly everyone that has been in his previous movies is in this movie.
What I'll say, we'll talk about the style of Rob Zombie especially, is his dialogue isn't incredibly, I would say, intelligent, but it's so aggressive that it's horrifying.
It's almost like there's no comparison, and I'm not going to be the one to say that there is any comparison whatsoever between Rob Zombie and Quentin Tarantino, but Quentin Tarantino's movies because the dialogue is a lot. There's a lot of it, and it's intelligent, but at the same time, there's just you can tell by the way the actors are portraying their lines. Oh, I'm watching a Quentin Tarantino movie. I'm going to sign up for a lot of dialogue. With zombie movies, you're going to sign up for almost the same as far as there's going to be a lot of dialogue per se, but it's going to be very much, the F-bomb is going to be like, water or air to them.
Yes.
But it's just, there's a cadence to it that just is easily identifiable that you're watching a Rob Zombie. What he has branded his own brand, I think, is Hellbilly, right? It's that sort of macabre but sort of rednecky hillbilly. Yeah, that's what it is.
Right. And like I said, there's so much aggression to it that it's its own horrifying sense of like, this is a really icky feeling.
Oh yeah.
And he pulls a lot. I think his style pulls a lot from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Almost, I feel, directly pulls from that movie, but there's just this sense of ick. And
he's very, and you're right, he's very much he's influenced by 70s horror, very much so.
Spaghetti horror.
Yeah, you could see the influence from Tobe Hooper in Texas Chainsaw. There's a lot of Carpenter in his work too. Not as apparent because it's Carpenter was minimalist as far as the blood and guts were concerned, but with Rob Zombie, he you can see a lot of this sort of icky, dirty, grimy. Everything is. You watch any documentary behind the scenes of all of his movies. Yeah. They'll get a piece of wardrobe and they just muck it up. Right. You know, there's the characters are gross, they're grimy. So it's almost like he's out of his element if he's going to shoot anything that's like when he has to shoot the Strodes or something, because Laurie is not that, you know. I mean, you can make Michael that if you want. I think that's why people drew the line in the sand from the beginning, was we didn't, or they, or us, whoever, did not want to see Michael be this grimy, backwoods sort of depiction. It didn't fit because from the original, when you see it, he's very, he's not, first of all, he got a really hulking character to play Michael. Yes, he got Tyler Mane.
Michael, yes.
Yeah, Sabretooth from X-Men. He got, he was a former wrestler. He's huge. The dude's like 6'7", almost 7 feet, I think. He's a huge guy. So he got a massive dude to play Michael, which it works because it's terrifying to see this hulking mass coming at you. But at the same time, that's not what made the original so effective, as far as the shape is concerned. Yeah. Because there is no shape here.
No.
Because when you can't be that hulking of a person and work your way through the shadows of Haddonfield. You can't be, stalking. It doesn't work. There's like moments where he's supposed to be stalking Annie, and they put even him on apple boxes to look through a window, and I'm like, that's so forced. It doesn't. Yeah. So there's something that's disconnected from that, but I don't think Rob Zombie set out to make a carbon copy of Halloween, which I appreciate.
Right. But again, I go back to stretching material, and we get so much origins. There's a reason for everything in this film. There's a reason for the mask. There's a reason for the costume. There's a reason for Michael doing what he does. And again, I feel like there's some tug of sympathy for him because you know so much about him. What freaked me out as a kid is a suburban Michael Myers kid snapping, being totally normal, nothing happening, and Michael snaps, and the 6-year-old just goes off. But now you're giving him the psycho.
You're giving him the why.
Yeah,
you're giving him
killing animals like in the first scene with his mask on.
Right, and that's all like what the FBI, when were diagnosing potential serial killers, these were like traits that they would exhibit.
Right.
But it's like, again, another line that was drawn in the sand, and especially I think where you and I will always differ, where what type of horror do you appreciate and or like, which is it scarier for the villain, and in this case Michael Myers, to kill and go crazy murdering just because he decided to that day, or is it scary for him to do all that because he was an abused kid, or he came from a bad home, or he has this driving force, like there's a why. So it's that. It's what type of horror do you feel hits you harder? And for me, I think it'll always be, and I know it'll always be, he just does for no reason, no motive.
Okay. That
is terrifying to me because he can be you, and he could be me, and he could be anybody. Mm-hmm. Guy next door, girl next door. Doesn't matter. You can get it.
Yeah. And I like that for a one-off film. But when we're building worlds and having multiple sequels, I like that we got a tidbit of information about Michael as we progressed. We got a little bit more each and every time. And even you can go back to Halloween 6, he snaps on the cult that was taking care of him and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So that's what I like. I like the tidbits that we get to progress every character and the world. In Zombies, we get a direct, this is everything. We are told everything about Michael Myers, his environment, the people in the world, and like you said about zombie style, everyone's like grim. We had a film in the 70s, Halloween 1, 1978. Everyone's pretty clean, you know what I mean? But he's got this grungy, no, Michael's gonna wear a Kiss shirt.
He's going to talk a lot. Even in the original, we don't talk. So now you're hearing a young Michael Myers not only talk, but carry on throughout. Like, it's a couple of days that we see him living in the world as he's a young kid,
and it builds up this sweet kid because though she's not my favorite actress, Sherry Moon Zombie's relationship with young Michael is this sweetness. Like she calls him a sweet boy kind of a thing. Like
he does have a sweet aspect to him. It's funny the casting that was the choices that were made for it, like because that's a tall order to get the perfect person or kid in this case to play young Michael when you have it's like you have one of the most iconic characters of all horror movie history and you want to nail it, right? So they went through extensive casting, and it's just when you see, and I don't know how to say his last name, but his first name is Daig, the boy who played fair.
That's okay.
It's fine. Okay,
look it up.
Anyway, he's got this like almost cherub quality of him. He looks like a little angel boy. He's got the puffy cheeks. He's got kind of sunken eyes or not sunken, but anyway, you'll see a picture of him and he's just, there's this like innocent quality to him. But then as the movie progresses, as he decides to start going down this road that they've set up that he must go on, there is a darkness that can be so it's almost like his face is the mask, is the original Michael mask because of how like emotionless it can be, but it's like pale and smooth. But there's a darkness behind the eyes. I think the kid that they chose was a real interesting choice, and I think it's effective.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly in the trailer, they show that shot of him in the cop car, kind of looking over. And then it flashes into the Michael Myers mask.
Right, yeah, that's what got me. I remember watching that trailer. I was up at my boy's house in El Paso, and I remember making all my friends watch this trailer with me, and I made them all promise that they were going to go watch it in theaters with me. I was always a super fan in college. I was really hitting my stride as far as like being out there. It's really hitting my stride as a Halloween fan. I was really just out there and being like, I don't care who knows, I don't care. I'm a Michael Myers fan through and through. It's just the way it is, and horror fan to begin with. But at the same time, it's like you're almost like as a fan, you're watching this, you're like, I hope this is great, but it should be. On paper, you have everything that makes sense. You have a hot director who understands horror. You have a good source material, and all you got to do is kind of like, he's going to write and direct it. Rob Zombie is, but if you see the way he directs, they've got the script there, and they're taking stuff out day of. He's even said, he's like, this is a piece of paper and I've got thoughts on it and I have beats that, they're blocked out for production. But as far as like what we're going to say, he almost has to feel it. He almost has to see the actors in their costume on the setting to kind of feel it. And then when you do, stuff changes on the fly.
I think he's more of an artist in his sense of directing and all that kind of stuff. So it makes more sense. And I think that's why the dialogue works out the way that it does so often. And again, that style, you're right though, on paper it worked. I originally, when I heard Rob Zombie, because again, I'm Mr. fucking internet, I'm looking, I want to know all the information before it's out. I originally was like, ooh, I don't know, because I know his style, I know the films that I've seen him do, House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects. How does that work in Michael's level and in Halloween and in the Haddonfield that I know? And that's not what we're getting.
No, I remember I was like, oh, you're gonna give Michael Myers long hair and a beard, aren't you? That's I was like, of course. Well, we didn't get like a huge beard, not yet, but we did get a long haired Michael Myers. Yeah. So I was like, whatever, like that's tuck it into the mask or don't. But this was the first time that we saw what they chose to do was show that Michael, not only in the original Michael kills Judith, and then his parents find him, and then cut. What?
No, go ahead.
What?
No, it made me laugh. I'm thinking of something. Go ahead.
Okay, so he kills Judith, right? And then his parents find him, and then he's committed, and then it fast forwards 17 years later, right? In this one, you're not only going to get the murder of Judith, you're going to get the murder of her boyfriend. You're going to get the murder of the stepfather. You're also going to get murder of the bully played by a spy kid. from the Spy Kids.
I remember him from Weeds, but yes.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So you're getting a lot of young Michael murdering. So it's like there's a lot that's going to be new, but there's a lot that's like, you might be kind of pushing it with what we're okay with seeing this iconic character do. And to me, you just need to kill Judith and you need to continue. But then again, that's then why the fuck would you make the movie then, right?
Yeah, and there's a big split right down the middle of this film where it is all Rob Zombie Origins of Halloween, and it's something you've never seen before. And then the second half is more of what you have seen before, just tweaked quite a bit. So I thought it was the perfect ending to the Rob Zombie portion of the film as far as that analogy goes, where he's just kind of offing everyone that was mean to him, basically. But specifically the scene where he finally makes a decision to kill his stepdad, it's a really cool part because there's a song playing that makes me laugh. I forget.
Is it Love Hurts?
Love Hurts.
Love Hurts.
So mom is stripping and Michael is left on his own to trick or treat, and he's just sitting there alone, and he's like having the worst Halloween ever.
Well, because he keeps on eating candy corn
by himself.
That's how we knew he was a psychopath, because he kept on eating candy corn.
Right, but so he's got a sugar rush, so he can blame it on that. Judith is supposed to take him trick or treating, doesn't,
because she's up there getting busy. As that is continued,
right? Plus now it's been forced in Michael's face that his mom's a stripper, and
right. That's how they bully him. She's got cutouts in the newspaper, which ridiculous. But
so
yeah,
mom's stripping. Michael's on the
he's
street.
On the sidewalk, the curb,
just depressed, and he goes, you know what, fuck this. I'm going home, and I'm wreaking havoc. This is my holiday. Y'all ruined it. I'm taking you out. And there's this really cool scene actually of Michael. It's almost like he's enjoying Halloween. It's like where it all kind of starts. He puts the clown mask on. He's got Ronnie tied up or with duct tape.
Because Ronnie's played by William Forsythe. He's like this ridiculously over the top, just disgusting of a human being. Right. He's like got a broken hand, a broken leg or something. Finger. And so he's just like,
yeah, he's got a broken finger.
He's all fucked up just before he gets killed.
Right.
And I mean, he's obviously very, very creepy. He like is making comments towards Judith, and this is a bad dude who you don't really feel terrible for him meeting his end.
And the unfortunate part is like that was one throwback that we would have loved to see done, I guess, a total throwback, which is Michael going into the drawer, grabbing the knife. Sure. But in Rob Zombie's version, it's duct tape and then a knife.
Right. He is able to tie down or tape down Ronnie because Ronnie is passed out because he's so drunk, and the only time he wakes up is when he gets the happy face.
Right. And right before that, though, before Michael makes the decision to do this, he's already tied him down, but he goes to the window, puts his mask on. So we got this creepy clown mask on. He looks outside and he sees the little trick-or-treaters going.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to the shot of Michael. And of course, he opens. This is a great scene. I love this scene. He opens the curtain with his knife to look out and see the kids trick-or-treating. And it's like, that's the transformation from little Michael to Halloween, gonna kill you, Michael. And it's so cool and creepy and well done. And then he goes and slashes Ronnie's throat. And I think it's just like, that's a really cool part of this film. I was like, oh yeah, that sets a tone. It talks about Michael. It shows Michael on Halloween and what went wrong on this particular Halloween.
Well, it's almost like it's his house, right? So it's where he feels comfortable. It's his happiness. So it's almost like, and then he slashes Ronnie, and he's happy. It's like almost like he's in his own slasher's paradise.
Oh.
Come on, you all want to mess around?
Anyway. Yes.
No. So he kills Ronnie, but there are more people in the house, which is so actually brilliant. If you're gonna commit multiple murders and you don't want anyone to kind of get wind of each other, he's taped down Ronnie's taped down over the mouth, over the head, incapacitated. So he just bled out, but that's how they saw him, just reclined on the couch, right? So there's no reason to suspect that he's anything but asleep. The mask, however, is introduced as a kid. The iconic Michael Myers, William Shatner mask is introduced as he's young. It is brought forth by not Linda, but Judith's boyfriend. I think his name is Steve. He brings it out, and he wants to do something like kinky stuff with Judith, and so that's where we first see the mask. So it's introduced at least 17 years before,
right? And to you, that's blasphemous, right? Somebody else is wearing the mask in a Halloween film,
right?
And that's how it's introduced to the world, is on this guy's.
Because what do we know? Because like honestly, if that could actually put a real hitch in your giddy up, if you kind of see that, you're like, oh, I don't like this right now at all. The fact that the reason
what's funny to me is how huge the mask is.
It's huge. Well, because it's that mask. I saw the process. They took a mold of Tyler Mane first. I know.
Yeah, you could tell.
Like, it's his fucking head on this, like, so even on that kid, that Judith's boyfriend, it doesn't fit on him either, right? So my poor Deborah Myers is out there just trying to make ends meet for her family. Nobody in there is working. The other dude's on, I guess, disability. Now he's permanently on disability. But anyway, right. Steve comes down. I'm going to call him Steve. Comes down and make a sandwich, and he gets brutally murdered. This one is actually the one that kind of makes me go like, I don't like this. He gets a bat over the head, an aluminum bat, and they do a great Foley job with all that sound, the crunching and the blood and the. As far as gross, disgusting, maybe even jarring kills, Rob Zombie does have. He's got it. He knows what the hell's going on.
He knows the shit, and it's very realistic in that sense. If you listen to crime podcasts or anything like that, if you followed these kind of things, they're super violent most of the time. They're kind of done out of passion or whatever. Yep. And that's what he really tones in on, is the blood and the crunch of his kills. Yeah, especially with Michael.
Yeah, so he takes this baseball bat to the boyfriend, who was just trying to. I think he was going to make a sandwich, for his. But what they did keep was the fact that these boyfriends of Judith can't last more than 2 minutes. Poor guys. So he dies there, and now we get back to the original idea of Halloween. The original movie, right. Michael's going up to kill Judith, but this time she fully sees him. He's wearing the mask. She has a little, because he kind of, she's not fully dressed. And he kind of like touches her, which is kind of weird, But
it's weird, but it made me think of like, oh, okay, I appreciate that, because that's something I always talk about with Michael, is his playfulness. You know what I mean? Yeah, he's to enter a scene, he starts to kind of,
I guess, like playing with your food. If you're a predator, you kind of play like cat and mouse. I don't know. I know. I got it.
Playful hands of Michael. Yeah, there's something. I appreciate it as a nod. It's super creepy, but it's a Rob Zombie film. Like, sex is all over the place.
Yeah, and there's
even the way she's filmed. I'm sorry, but no, it's the way she's filmed. They filmed at the worst angle for a woman, which
unflattering.
Is very unflattering, and he does it multiple times through both films. And it's that upshot with the girl's legs crossed at the butt kind of a thing. My fiance was in there watching, and I was like, oh wow, there's her, everything.
Yeah, there's a very gratuitous nudity in a lot of Rob Zombie movies, but what we have here is an unflattering angle and a very, you get to see the woman's very private parts. It's just like not something. When nudity was just, talk about where we were in 1978 with the original Halloween. Yeah, you do see a little bit of Judith. She covers herself when she sees Michael, and when you see Linda, you can, she's topless. So the nudity was like almost like classy. Yeah, and we are far removed from that, because you have fully nude characters, even going through like multiple scenes where they're having to be fully nude, like pre and post death. So anyway, wakes Judith up, right? And because she was listening, she was listening to music, so he gets her attention. He's already in his. So he's got the Myers mask on, but he's got his clown costume on, which is actually kind of, it's like a mesh between two worlds.
Sure.
So, but he gives her the business. He kills the hell out of her with a knife.
He does, but she,
like, answer me. What are you doing?
Sort of a thing. He gives her a good stab in the stomach, and then she kind of trails out. So this scene is actually going to last a lot longer than the original, which was just him going at it. So now we get little Michael in his clown outfit with the Michael Myers white pill-shaped mask going down the hallway, and I don't know if you remember your theater experience, but everyone started laughing at this scene, and so did I. And I still do to this day. I start cracking up.
Because of how big the mask is on him?
Because of how big the mask is. You got this little Michael going after his sister, and you're like, okay, this is comical. But for me, it's some legitimacy out of the film because everyone's laughing at this point.
I didn't laugh at that part, but I did laugh at the same reason.
Yeah.
Right after he kills Judith, and they show the baby, which we didn't mention. Laurie Strode is born. She's a baby in this, right? Boo. They call her Boo, right? She's a baby in this, so the baby's been left there. Poor Deborah Myers, but I don't know how good of a mom this woman is. Like, she's leaving a lot of care into this stepfather who is obviously abusive verbally and is creepy and is crippled, to Michael, who's going to go trick-or-treating by himself, and Judith, who is like got her own agenda, and there's a baby just in the crib, this poor darling child. So when I laugh is the same reason that you mentioned, but it's that scene because Judith is dead, everyone else is dead, and all that's left is the baby, and you think, no way, he's not going to kill the baby. But the shot starts of the baby and then pans to the door frame, and he's in there just like standing with the with the mask on. It is funny because it's a small body, but it almost looks like he's like, ¿Qué pasó? You know, because the mask is kind of tilted up. ¿Qué pasó? Anyway, yeah, he takes the baby outside. They go sit down.
But he's deactivated.
Yeah,
he's turned off.
He's turned off shape. Here's something interesting. I only realized this in watching the documentary and hearing the people talk about it. It's the relationship you mentioned between Deborah Myers and Michael is so, like, there's a huge connection there that he did what he did, killed Ronnie and Steve and I guess and Judith to protect his mom.
Okay.
Because they were all really like not the boyfriend really, but like they were all mean to her and they were like abusive of her, and it was a way for him to be like, it's okay now, we can be okay now, you and me and the baby, right? So there was something I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. It's a warped way of looking at it because like, no, you can't just go and do that, but that was maybe his motive for doing it anyway.
Right, but at the same time, is it really a motive if you completely are gone in the moment, or is it just the pushing point?
I think it's the pushing point because he hasn't left us because he's still there. He's still talking to her, almost like he doesn't understand later when he's committed and he's talking to her. He's like, how's everybody at home?
Yeah,
like he's almost like kind of like he had an episode sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it was driven from a real sort of, so there is a lot to unpack in that as far as how much baggage you want to give him, which people are bullied at school. That's one thing, but he's obviously got the tendency to be a little, he is psychotic because he's killing multiple animals and keeping them, taking pictures of them. That's all serial killer motives. So, it was only a matter of time until he was going to eventually do this, but he does pick where he draws the line. In this sense, it's his baby sister Boo and obviously his mom.
Right. Okay. So now Michael Myers is committed.
And we're introduced to a brand new Dr. Samuel Loomis, played by movie royalty, Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah. I like Malcolm McDowell. For the
Who
most
doesn't?
Part.
This is a horror show. Well, that's what he says in Clockwork Orange.
Yes. Loomis is my favorite character. I had a hard time swallowing this one because I felt like he wasn't really a touchable character. Rewatching it, he did a good job. I mean, telling the story and diving in, but we also get an origins of Loomis and Michael together, kind of,
Well, that's what we don't get to see obviously in the original, but what we miss, or sorry, I'm not going to use that. What we get with Donald Pleasance's Loomis is comfort, I believe.
Yeah.
Against the boogeyman. And we know that he is driven by a sole motive, which is to protect those who may be affected by Michael and also to stop Michael. With this Loomis, he's almost you could see there's tendencies of himself believing in his own bullshit. He's a bit grandiose. I don't think it was effectively portrayed as far as when he decided to be a caring doctor. I didn't believe him.
Okay.
I just didn't, because I've seen him be kind of there's tendencies. The tendencies are there. Like, okay, when so he stopped being. Eventually, Michael grows to an age where he's just not talking anymore, and Loomis has decided he's not going to be his doctor anymore. He goes out and he writes an exploitative book. He gives a lecture at a hall in front of students where behind him, he has a huge picture of Michael Myers as his background. Like if he's like Patton, behind the Stars and Stripes. That's not you trying to be a good doctor. That's you trying to like capitalize on the fact that you were assigned to a serial killer essentially, or like a big story. So I didn't really like that aspect of Loomis. And then in Halloween 2, they just shit the bed on that. And I hate Loomis in Halloween 2. But we'll talk about that later.
Right.
So in this one, I'm like, there's things about Malcolm McDowell's portrayal and or maybe the way it was written that I want my Dr. Loomis to be more like Donald Pleasance, because then I feel like you're going to care only when it benefits you. Or, I mean, okay, the character's complex. I can give him that. Yeah, he's got other things going on. But it just, I didn't like it personally.
I didn't like it either. And especially at that time, I was such a huge fan. I was so in depth into the Halloween franchise. I was like, you can't touch him. And I was so stubborn about it. Now I give more of an applaud to Zombie. Like, you got to do something different. I mean, you're going to make it your own film. You got to go that route, I guess, or, whatever route you choose. And that's the one that he went with. Some of the stuff with him and Michael when Michael's a kid is interesting. He tries to befriend him. He asks him questions. He tries to get more out of him. But you're right. There's something missing with the connection.
There is, because I think,
and it was important later on. I mean, it was so important later on.
It's hugely important later on, because like you have to make us care. And I would love to dive into a depiction of this relationship between a doctor and a patient, where the doctor almost feels like, I can help you, I can save you. Just, let me help you. And it felt kind of like it was maybe Malcolm McDowell was just not the right casting for it. But, I think you could have driven that point better, forward better, just a little bit more like likability about him, and just a little bit more like awe factor to them, because that would be nice to see that only I understand Michael, which is what Donald Pleasance did give us. He's like, he's the one that saw him, and he knew how dangerous he was. A lot of times you almost don't even, because of how they packaged Michael, you feel like he's just waiting for somebody to say the right, coupling of words for him to like settle down. Whereas in the original, he didn't look like he could be reasoned with. Right. And I like that.
Yeah, I like that as well. And what's funny that you just mentioned that, because we have that scene with Danny Trejo.
Oh, yes.
Danny Trejo is the
Machete.
He's the one that kind of sets Michael off, and he says, like, look beyond the walls and envision something else.
Try to live inside your head. Danny Trejo plays a janitor who's like he's there when he's young, when he's barely committed, and, all the way till he's like 17 years older, right? So it's a cool, it's almost like, you're like, oh, if you're nice to Michael, he would have, he will spare your life or whatever, right? And he ends up not, because when he does break out, although, got to talk about something real quick. It depends on how you watch this movie. For Lance and I, we watched this movie in theaters, and there is a theatrical cut to the movie, which has a completely different way as to how Michael escapes the prison.
Yeah.
The sanitarium. There's a completely different way. In the theatrical version, he's being transported by guards who are played by
Bill Moseley,
Leslie Easterbrook, who's she's in The Devil's Rejects, and Tom Towles, I think is his name. He was the deputy in House 1. Anyway, House of 1,000 Corpses, Rob Zombie's first movie. Yes. Anyway, that's what I was saying. So they're transporting him, and Michael breaks out of his chains and kills them all, and kills a couple more people, and then escapes. That's all well and good. It just it didn't seem like it was very Rob Zombie-ish. It seemed very much like, go do this because what you originally filmed is too much. And you know what? Yeah. It actually was a reshoot. This was done 3 months later after principal photography closed.
Yes. It seems like one of those compromises that Rob Zombie said, okay, I'll reshoot your scene, but I'm doing it with my people.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. He brings everyone from House and Rejects and puts them together, which they have a great dynamic. They have some comedy in there.
I mean, it's funny to see Bill Moseley, who we just got done seeing as this
Otis, as
Otis, and he's just like, this clean cut
and like handsome. He's a good looking dude.
Oh, Bill, I mean, he's got such an unmistakable voice. I love Bill Moseley's voice. I would love for him to just like narrate like a horror short.
He went to like Harvard or Yale or like he went to a very prestigious Ivy
League really?
School. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the first time we were introduced to him, for you probably, I know for me it was Texas Chainsaw 2 as Chop Top. So did you get her? Did you get her?
One of my favorite horror characters of all time.
Chop Top?
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
Oh, we got to talk about that. Anyway, so that's the theatrical version. In the original intended, very much Rob Zombie directed director's cut, he is first of all, he's decided to make masks. That's his thing.
He identifies with masks.
He identifies with masks.
He starts to hide behind them and says, don't, I need to cover my face. I'm ugly and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's what he tells his mom when he's still a kid and when he's still talking. Eventually, he stops talking.
Right.
But yeah, he makes a lot of masks, and his cell is just covered with masks, which I actually thought was actually really cool.
Me too. I did too. And there's even one shot in the director's cut I watched last night where you can actually see it looks like a Myers mask, where it's very white, very defined cheeks and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, there's one quick shot of it that you can see.
Which like is so cool. Like, I mean, I love that that idea of identifying with like kind of masking yourself and who are you when you have something to cover your face.
Right.
Very cool idea. So then in the director's cut, and this is just the way it was. This is the movie. An orderly who was paired with Danny Trejo is Lou Temple, and he's just this like he pushes it, He kind of has some racial innuendo remarks towards Danny Trejo, and it's very much I remember people in the theater being like, "Pinche ese, don't be talking to Danny Trejo like that," So him and I guess his cousin who works there, who they almost look similar, get another patient, a woman, and take her into, this is all after hours, take her into Michael Myers' cell and proceed to get him to do something. He's just in there making masks, which never seems, just how hulking this dude is. Yeah. Why would this seem like a good idea? Anyway, going into his cell and proceeding to fuck with him, like call him names and scream at him and mess with his masks and rape the girl on his bed and it's just like a very tumultuous scene.
I think yelling at him is just, they think he's dormant. He hasn't done anything since he killed in the original theatrical, does he kill that nurse as a child?
No, he just no.
So I'm thinking of director's cut. Okay, so he hasn't done anything.
I'm sorry. I don't know. The major difference I remember from the theatrical and the directors is the way he breaks out of prison.
Okay, so from the version that I saw,
oh right, that's such a it's shot in that like sped up slow motion, and he does it while wearing a mask, and this is still young Michael, and the mom is visiting at the time, and so when she tries to take his mask off, he like like screams and like charges at her, and she like is in terror, like she finally sees him as the monster that he is.
Yeah, and that scene is just what kind of sets her off, and she ends up offing herself.
She kills herself while she, she has her baby there. So you hear her shoot herself, and the baby's crying in the background.
Boo, who becomes Laurie Strode eventually, is in the scene with her, but that's what sets her off. So nothing has happened since then, since he was a kid, and he's been completely mute ever since then. We've established that he's choosing to be mute at this point, but he can speak. That is something you need to know going forward. That he can speak. So so these guys go in there, start kind of poking the bear, trying to get him to do his thing. We get to see Michael's lair, which is kind of cool.
It is a really cool looking lair. He's got all the masks set up everywhere. So wonderful.
It's really cool. Like if we're going to get locked up, that's probably what we're going to end up doing. But he's just dormant. He's just in there paper macheing his mask.
But he's still 7 feet tall.
Yes.
I wouldn't mess with a dormant 7 foot tall anything.
Yeah.
So he's like a bear that you just woke up from hibernation. Right. You know?
Yeah.
So he does. He's like, oh, y'all wanted to fuck around. Oh, okay, cool. He kills both the orderlies, and he doesn't touch the girl, which, I mean, that's nice of him. But he's...
As far as we know.
Right. I don't think he does. Because he's just, whatever. He goes in the hospital. He's going to break out, kills a couple more people. One including Danny Trejo, who was his, like, sort of guardian angel sort of thing. Right. It just shows that there is nothing, and there is something there that is nice, that you can show that you can't, even though you want to be this good moral compass of a character, you're still likely to be killed.
Well, that's when you see, like, is he going to actually kill everyone in his path, or is there some, like, stay of, or is there something left from the child that everyone was so nice to, or somebody like Trejo. And he makes the decision to off Trejo and kill Trejo.
Kills him good.
And we get the TV on the head after he drowns him a little bit.
Yeah.
And Danny Trejo, I was good to you, Michael.
I was good to you, Mikey. Mikey, I was good to you.
So that was another thing. I like that he called him Mikey. He just like identified with the little boy. He's watched him grow up for 17 years,
Also, this is me just... I love Danny Trejo as a person.
Yes.
He is one of the most awesome people to meet in real life. If you're ever in the LA area and there isn't a pandemic going on, go to Trejo's Tacos. You will probably be there. Last time I was there, I took Caitlin for her birthday, and he sang happy birthday to her.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, he's just a cool guy. But anyway, Michael's out, and he's headed to Haddonfield. Here's the thing about Zombies casting. He's going to cast the people, and he'll tell you. He's like, I'll cast the people that I've worked with because I know that they'll come in, they'll nail it, and they will give me what I want.
Yeah.
Totally cool. I know. I've written and directed a few things. I know who the hell I want to call for things because I've just like, these people will be, they'll nail it.
Right.
But sometimes it's like... I don't think that was the best casting. You might fanboying out a little bit too much.
Okay.
Udo Kier as the head. He's like the head shirt basically at the head suit. Sorry, at Smith's Grove.
Yeah.
It's just he's a very striking, he was in Blade obviously, but like he's done way more before that. He's a German actor who's got a heavy accent, and that's what we're going through is
who's his number 2?
Clint Howard.
Clint kind of movie are we in for right now?
I mean, at the same time, just give Clint Howard that spot because like Clint Howard can do, Clint Howard had me as a fan of his awesome work since The Wraith. Yes. You know that movie?
Oh yeah, I know The Wraith.
Yeah. Oh, we're talking about that one. So anyway, it's just sometimes that the casting does match, and then sometimes I'm just like, ay Dios. But one part, let me get it here. One part, Lance, where they nailed the casting, and this is going to be a huge favorite part for our wives, I'm sure. Returning to Halloween, the Halloween franchise is a now adult Danielle Harris. She's back, and she's an adult, and she is, which is kind of interesting because Danielle Harris is not playing Jamie, who she was playing in Halloween 4 and 5. She's playing Annie. Brackett in this remake. So that was interesting, Lance.
It was very interesting. Not only that, but she looks great.
Fantastic.
She's playing a teenager in this thing, but it was just exciting to see that. this movie didn't feel so much like H2O and Resurrection, where we're just like, I don't know, add a name. This was like, let's add Danielle Harris to this. Why not? Something about it, though, as I think Rob Zombie was a fan like us of the Halloween movies, so putting Danielle Harris in certain situations in this thing felt a little odd. But
well, yeah, I think because there is, and I was making sure I went, and I was really trying to think hard. And if I mess this up, I apologize. But there is zero connection to any of the original Halloweens. The only connection that we have is, I think, Danielle Harris.
Right.
Tiny connection. Adrienne Barbeau is in a deleted scene, and she was engaged to John Carpenter or whatever. But anyway, Danielle Harris is the only connection that we have from any of the originals.
Yeah, and she's great. She plays Annie in this, but I think personally, a lot of people are going to disagree, probably you as well. I think she's a better character and gets more acting chops in H2, Rob Zombie's H2, than this one. I feel like
I wouldn't disagree with you.
I feel like Annie, Linda, and even Laurie are very rushed in the end of this. I feel like those characters don't have the depth that they had in the original one.
But it's funny though. I think they get about the same amount of screen time that they did in the original Halloween.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, they might even get a little bit more in this one because they got the walking home, they got the library scene, and then they got them in their individual parts, and then like phone calls and stuff to each other. But in the original, you've got them walking home, and that's it.
Yeah,
for at least, yeah,
right. And then in this version, though, we don't get Laurie on her own walking home. She's immediately home. We get her for like 2 seconds.
We get her for like
Michael's
2 seconds,
like basically chasing her down, kind of a thing.
Well, yeah,
he's walking after her, and she doesn't know it. But that's basically the only part. It's like a block. Maybe.
I don't want to say that somebody can't do anything that they try and set their minds out to. I hate putting people in boxes and stuff, but it seems as though Rob Zombie has a very good mind for the macabre and the dirty and the grimy, and he could shoot that very well. I think he's at a disadvantage when it comes to shooting the cookie cutter sort of, and not that he even says that he was like, I wasn't going for this cookie cutter stuff. He was, or family, he was trying to make an edgier Laurie, which is maybe a sign of the times, and is maybe what people would be like, oh, I believe that, because I guess, frankly, the style of Laurie Strode as played by Jamie Lee in the original, that really doesn't exist anymore as far as that. I don't know. Maybe they do, that sort of person.
This is like what I said about Loomis, is like, you made it your own. You made your own version of Laurie in today's standard, because we're basically in the original film, Michael at 6 years old is happening in the 60s, and then, or the 60s, and then we go to the 70s. Well, this is origins. Michael is in the 70s, and now we're in current times.
But that's the thing, is that like they never put a date on it.
They don't.
But it has to be the 70s. But then like forward, Loomis has a cell phone. They call him on his cell phone.
Yeah, it's more modern.
So I don't know. And that's totally a way to shoot the film, where you don't give it a time frame, or you don't give it you
just give it a style of an era. I mean, all the music's from the 70s.
Right.
It's got its own thing going on. But so this version of Laurie is kind of a hipster. She's into the macabre a little bit. She's got skulls on her sweater.
Yeah, but it's also like see, I didn't like personally the interaction she has with first of all, there's a lot of royalty of horror movies in this movie. Dee Wallace, who plays her mom from E.T. and The Howling and all that stuff. Dee Wallace plays Mrs. Strode, and they have like this breakfast, and Laurie kind of just is so ridiculously crass with her mom, talking about this like this owner of a lumber, like like a tool store or whatever, like what the hell am I trying to say? Anyway, talks about how he's old, and he likes to touch me in all the right way, and she gets a bagel and she puts her finger through it, and I'm like, that's not the way anyone talks to their mom. I don't think.
I feel like, I don't know if this is real life, but a lot of movies portray, and Laurie does not know that she's adopted, but she is. These parents are not her original parents, her birth parents. So movies seem to portray adoptive parents a lot differently, and they're always much more like friendly and crass in a lot of situations. They raise very aware children.
Is that her Myers-ness poking out?
Maybe, but the adoptive parents totally embrace it because of whatever reason. I've never adopted a kid. Can't tell you about the relationship you'd have with one, but that's how movies seem to portray these relationships. So I was okay with that. And it doesn't feel like zombie stuff really to me. It doesn't feel like that aggressive sexualness, but it's there. There's something to it.
Because you're waiting to meet Laurie Strode.
Yeah.
You want to know who's playing Laurie Strode. You want to know what she's got, what kind of, and she's right. I'm talking about Scout Taylor Compton, who talks about it in the behind the scenes. She's like, there was a lot that she felt that she had to live up to. And I didn't like this casting personally. It was hard for me to connect to her. I felt like there was something just missing, and if it's missing here, even though she like when she's like being sweet and stuff, it's kind of okay and it's good. But in H2, like I'm done with this. But anyway, I don't know. It's a lot to live up to. You're talking about having to live up to the iconic character that is Laurie Strode, portrayed by Jamie Lee Curtis. It's just a lot on someone's plate.
Yeah, and I think one of those it's the Rob Zombie. It's the what is it? The round peg in the square circle or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say. It just doesn't fit. He tried to put his vision into Halloween, and it was like you could have just done a totally different Loomis, a totally different Laurie, and I think it would have worked better than trying to fit your vision and your creativity and your artistic style into what Halloween is. And that's how this film feels, is like it starts to go over the edge of zombie isms.
Right.
It's like, oh no, but this is still Halloween. We got to make sure that we know it's Halloween. Everyone needs to know that it's Halloween, but we'll give you some little things. It feels like a very controlled Rob Zombie, where Halloween 2 does not at all.
Right.
Like at all. So.
And I totally agree. And you know what? To a certain point, when you are used to doing your own independent sort of, you're creating the characters, you're the boss that answers to yourself if it's an indie flick and stuff like that. Now you got big bosses who are like, well, you got to make sure you have this. And like, I know, so for as far as the score goes, right? They got Tyler Bates to come in. He does, it's very it's kind of like Overdrive, a lot of like electronic metal clanking of intense scenes. But the original sort of ding, 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 ding are still kind of there, you know, ding, 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 you know, like they're around. And I know that if you're an original creator, sometimes doing something that someone has already done, it eats at you. So you fight against, well, do I have to do fan service? Do I have to make sure that, you know, I'm paying off my own instincts and intentions? So I could see that there's a lot of back and forth probably internally, but you know what? It ended up being a lot better than it probably should have been compared to other remakes. Nightmare on Elm Street. So here we are with a pretty decent depiction, but something that I feel like fans, you're never going to please all the fans,
right?
You know, and it's just the way it is. You're never going to make something that everybody likes. That's just the way it is. So, you know, trying to take ownership of this character that was already created, that's tough. That's tough to do.
There's a few little things like that I really dug in the movie. There's a scene where Laurie's leaving her parents to go off for the night, and Laurie's dad's on the porch basically saying goodbye, tells the wife like, all right, go ahead inside, I'll be right there. He starts like looking at the sky and talking about God knows what, and Michael punches him in the face. It's the first like jump scare.
Or he slashes him right in the head.
It's kind of like this weird this weird like slash to the face head thing, but it's like oh shit.
Yeah.
It's a good like pop, you know, scare, which we don't really get too many of those. Everything's so aggressive, and like Michael's just this force of just, you know, pounding everyone kind of a thing. So that was a fun little scare, and a little bit different when he goes inside the house and takes care of mom. And then one scene that I love actually is Michael kind of going back to enjoying Halloween with Lindsay. Lindsay's watching the thing,
sure. Yeah.
The original thing, I think, right? And
the that is still there. The original Horror-thon is playing.
Yeah, and we have a new Lindsay Wallace. Lindsay and Tommy are just awful in this film. This so annoying. But there's this really cool scene where Michael's just standing there watching the movie. You actually see his eyes like go like look at Lindsay watching the movie, and he's like, "Oh, I want to watch this too." And it's so funny I always love seeing Michael just kind of enjoy a little bit of Halloween. Like,
but I know, Lance, what you really liked is the way that Michael got his coveralls. And from who? A new character played by Ken Foray, who was in Devil's Rejects. He plays Joe Grizzly.
Bitch.
Yeah. This is some... Oh, I love this character. I love this actor. He just is like lost in time truck driver who's like wearing the coveralls. He's got like this like 70s perm on him, and he's just driving his truck to the truck wash, and he's like, "Hey, Joe Grizzly's in town. Who's got the Crack-a-Jack?" I was like, "Fuck, I want to party with this dude. I want to chill." So he just, everything about the Joe Grizzly scene, I absolutely love. Just because like I don't care that it's a Michael Myers scene at some point you don't even, or movie, at some point you could even discount that it is, because he's in a bathrobe and he had just come out of the asylum. He's wearing that orange mask, which I actually like that orange mask.
Me too.
The one that's just orange.
I do as well. Yeah. That was really
cool. So Joe Grizzly is going to let his truck be washed. He's going to go take a dump in the stalls, and he's got a nude magazine, you know, one of those Playboys or whatever, like and he's just like talking to himself. I love this character because he's opening this, you know, the magazine, and he sees a naked girl, and he's just like, naughty. I'm like, he's just having this outer dialogue, and then Michael knocks on the door, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, just to give you a heads up, I got a Taco Deluxe Supreme talking back at me." I was just like, I never like using the restroom in public places, but to be that like forward with someone you haven't met, you know, and you're just in there in your intimate moment trying to take a dump, and you're just all like, "Oh, it's gonna be a long one, my friend," you know. It just kills me. I love that part.
It's a hilarious character, and there's very much a Rob Zombie character, which they need to kind of bring back or something.
Oh yeah, we need the that's the prequel I want to see, is Joe Grizzly.
Grizzly, bitch. That's the name of it.
Yeah, he gets up to like confront Michael after he keeps on banging on the door, not letting him like drop his load. He's like, "Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch." I'm like, are we supposed to know who Joe Grizzly is?
Yes, you are, Danny.
Yeah, I'm the bitch. I'm the bitch because I don't know who
you don't know. You don't know about Joe Grizzly, do you?
Anyway, Michael, obviously, because they're two big dudes fighting in a stall that is it's like King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, it really is.
And he gets the coveralls, and there you go. But back to Danielle Harris, as I know we all love to talk about. I mean, we got to try and navigate this the best way possible, Lance, but I'll tell you what I was going through when I was in the movie theater.
Okay.
So Annie Brackett, as we know in the original Halloween, does not make it to see Paul. No. She could no longer stall, but Michael ended her life in the car before she was trying to go get Paul.
Yes.
In this one, the character of Annie's played by Danielle Harris, and she takes Lindsay over because she's going to go hook up with Paul. This has already been discussed.
Yep.
So she drops Lindsay off, and she gets Paul. We see Paul. We had before not seen Paul. And Paul and Annie are hooking up on the couch. And Michael's in there. And the thing is, again, there's some things that just are not working. The fact that he's hitting his head almost on every threshold, every fucking banister.
Fit in the frame most of the time.
Yeah, it's like they almost have to raise the couches. Anyway, I'm in the theater. I have no idea what I'm expecting to watch. I see, Danielle Harris getting down with Paul, and then she's nude. Not fully. She's half naked.
Topless.
She's topless. That's the word I was looking for.
Topless. She's topless.
She's topless, and I don't know, honestly, Lance, what Rob Zombie was doing, but if that was just fan service for all of the people who are dudes who end up getting a crush, or not anybody who got a crush on Danielle Harris, I don't know if that was intentional, but if it was, that happened, and it was.
We get a whole lot of topless Danielle Harris in this one. as our first viewing when we were much, much younger. It was exciting and fun and yay. Okay. As a little older adult, it was really awkward watching for me.
Let me tell you. Yes, absolutely. Because, okay, she's, you know, with her boyfriend and it's very passionate and we're, you know, they seem to be enjoying it. And you're like, oh, nice. Topless Danielle Harris. Yeah. And then she's topless for way too long. And she's being ravaged and killed by Michael, and you're like, "Oh, actually, I don't like this."
She's being dragged around. She's got blood like all over her toplessness, and it's a hard watch. I don't know. My fiance was actually walked in, I think, on that scene, and
of course, that's exactly like, when they walk in.
I was like, "No, this is actually hard for me to watch at this point because." It's just we talked about the innocence of our crush, and it was little Danielle Harris, and she's older than us, but. The innocence goes away, and I feel like it was Rob Zombie being a fan like us,
sure,
having the same crush that we had, and going like, "Here's my opportunity, here's my chance."
Well, I mean, he's older than us, obviously, but like I mean,
I feel like he knew what he was doing with this.
At the same time, it's like, again. If they're because I'm in college when I'm watching this, so it's like yay, nudity because that's the reason you put it on TV as far as like or in movies for teen boys to like be like right, and then you keep watching and you're like, well, the nudity's still there, but this is really uncomfortable, which was effective. That is incredibly effective, and he can do that. He can really do that. You're thinking, you're like, oh, nice, I get to see nudity, but then you're like, oh, but that's not. I don't want them to go through that.
It's personal.
Yes,
it's a personal thing. Like if you had not watched the rest of the franchise and you're new to the franchise with Rob Zombie or Halloween films, then it's no big deal, and it's kind of like, oh, that's a cool scene. Like the girl's topless the whole time. There's that sex and violence that Rob Zombie loves so much. There's blood all over her. But when it's personal, it touches home in a different way.
It sure did. And like such a awesome underrated actor in Danielle Harris. I mean, I think she that scene is just she was, I could like, I saw the behind the scenes. She's fighting. She's like, I want to be in this scene. I can do it. Throw me around. And I just respect that as an actor myself. I can respect that for somebody to be like, I don't need a stunt person. I can be involved in this, and I'm willing. I want to, see this character through. And there's just, that is one of the most gruesome, but also gut wrenching, heart wrenching kills in that movie.
Yeah, well, Lori comes and finds her at some point. She walks in, and Annie's on the ground in the front, the entry area or whatever, but she's still alive. She doesn't say much, and Lori goes on to get help or call 911.
Well, because they also see Paul, and that is actually a cool image. Paul's hanging with the pumpkin on his head. That's, again, Michael's just having fun tonight. Isn't that terrifying?
But Annie's still alive, and when Lori leaves, Annie's got this pain, and she starts screaming for Lori because Michael was right behind the door.
She can't tell. She can't tell Lori because she's just like destroyed.
She's in shock and everything, and then she starts screaming for Lori. And the way this is shot is interesting because I think Danielle Harris, the way she looked, she's just good looking and all this kind of stuff. But in this shot where she has blood coming off her mouth and on her face and everything, the way it's shot so close to her face, we're not talking about the toplessness anymore. We're talking about just the close up of her face and screaming in pain. She looks so much like she did in Halloween 4 and 5, which kind of tugged away like, oh, this is a cool nostalgic moment.
And you don't want to see this character, even though it's a new character, but it's the same actor. You're like, you made it. I mean, your character didn't make it because in Halloween 6, Jamie Lloyd dies, the character. But Danielle Harris made it. She survived 4 and 5, and you're like, don't do it. Please don't. And, you're pulling for her to survive. And look, we're not going to go through the whole movie because it is mostly the original. There are some cool things that he does. He's very more gratuitous even with Linda and her death. Like now this one is fully nude. Like she is like fully, and Christina Klebe, who plays Linda, went for it. Bob dies differently in the theatrical than the director's cut. There's 2 deaths for Bob. Yeah. So whichever one you watch, he either gets killed in the van or he gets killed traditional Bob style, which is my favorite kill in the franchise. But it's my favorite kill, especially in part 1. You know, stab through the chest, and they do the ghost Bob thing again. All that happens, but like Linda is, obviously this is different. Linda and Bob have decided that they're gonna go get busy in the Myers house,
right?
And you know, that's new. But yeah,
what was funny about that scene is they play up the old scene, which is like, see anything you like.
Sure,
we get all that. But then it's the Rob Zombie version. Like, no, I'm going to show you more. And you get all of it. You get everything with Linda.
Which, as an actor, like, kudos to you to be able to, because there are too many people on set that day and every day. There are so many people on set for you to be able to portray that. I mean, like, that was wonderful. But again, the hulking mass that is Michael, you don't know that that's not your boyfriend. He's only 7 feet tall now, wearing a sheet. Right? Yeah, but anyway, besides
of how he remade basically the original, we get that, and that's all kind of paying homage, and then we get a totally different Annie, and that whole thing escalates a different way, which is really cool.
We still have most of the characters are, you know, we'd still get Loomis going to the graveyard and not seeing the tombstone. We get all that. We get Loomis trying to convince Brackett, which again, another piece of amazing horror movie royalty. Brad Dourif playing Sheriff Lee Brackett. And Brad Dourif, if you guys don't know, is not only a amazing actor in like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and in The Exorcist 3, but he's also the voice of Chucky, and you hear it sometimes. But I will talk about this moment really quick. It's when he goes and he finds Annie, because they get the 911 call, and you know, they go to the house. Oh, it just destroys me, because it's a multitude of my childhood just merging in that moment. Yeah. Because he opens the door and he sees his daughter, Annie Brackett, on the floor, and he just goes, Annie? And the way he says it, it sounds like Chucky, and it's like Chucky, and it's a Halloween movie, and there's Danielle Harris. I'm like, I'm losing it. So it's just like, and it's also very like touching, because you hear it in his voice. What an amazing actor, underappreciated again.
Mm-hmm. That quiver, if you can do that quiver in your voice in that scene, discovering your daughter.
Yeah.
Especially when you have the emotional attachment that we have, which a lot of people that watch this film probably didn't have. Some, because we have a new audience coming into this.
Right.
Line.
So, at some points, you realize he's going to make this new movie, and it's going to be for people who've never seen Halloween before.
Right.
Totally fine. You know, not everybody lives in a vacuum like I do, you know, where we're just watching the classics. So there are some things that, like, you know, we're going to work, and some things that we're just going to fall flat. And to me, for the beginning to the end, it was just, I couldn't get over how lumbering and big and hulking Michael was. It's terrifying as like a Jason maybe, but as a Michael, it's just like, oh, this guy. But you know what? You're gonna make a rough Michael who busts through doors and shit like that. That's fine.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of explained, or I said before, is everything has to be explained. Like, I was watching with my fiance, and she's like, oh, he just took that knife to the shoulder and he's fine. Like, that's why he's so big, I think, is to explain everything.
And he gets shot too. Yeah,
he gets shot, he gets everything. He just takes so much punishment, but it's okay because he's a fucking monster of a human being. And that's what we have to deal with, is everything is explained in this film. There's a motive for everything, and there's the psychological side to Michael, and he's still, you can still dive into Michael and find, you know, that little piece of, maybe I'll get away from him. You know, you can get into the psychological side of him, and Loomis tries, and, you know, there's just everything.
There's a, this is not, you know, Terminator. He can't be reasoned. Or, that was very much apparent in the original. I believe so. That I'm like, if I run into this dude and I'm in his way, I'm going to die. This one, you almost can like be like, okay, just gonna avoid you, even though, but that's strange to say, even though, because how big he is anyway. Anyway, the final scene, the final act leads us to a standoff between Laurie and Michael, but this one's a little bit more cat and mouse throughout the whole Myers house. He takes her back there and he's trying to explain to her without using any words that she is his sister. He's got a dead Linda in front of the Myers tombstone again. So Laurie doesn't know because he's just handing her a picture of her as a baby with him, and he's just like,
yeah,
look at it, you know? And she's like, I don't want it, you know? So she ends up escaping from the house, and he's just losing it, breaking shit, walking through walls. It's a very high tense, it's a very high intensity ending. Finally, Loomis finds her, and depending on which ending you've seen, he's able to either save her by shooting Michael. Oh, she escapes and like falls into an abandoned pool, an empty pool, and he goes in there. That's when Loomis, finds them, shoots him in the back, and saves Laurie. Goes into the car. We see the hear the iconic line where she asks Loomis, who she's never met before, "Was that the boogeyman?"
Yeah.
And you're just waiting to hear Donald Pleasance. And I think that's why I was like, at this point, I was like this.
Yeah.
Just like, just tense in my seat. I remember in the theaters, I was just like, don't you dare. And the way Malcolm delivers it, it's like, it's hard because you want to hear Donald Pleasance.
It's him trying, and it just doesn't land at all. Like, I mean, it's so disappointing to hear.
As a matter of fact, I do believe it was. I was like,
you're reading lines. It just does not.
But you know what? He is an amazing actor. It's just because he's put into this position where we want to see Donald Pleasance.
Well, yeah, you made the character so similar. That's why I say is if you're gonna, change it up, change it up.
Yeah.
Don't give us half-assed version of what we want and what you want.
Yeah.
And in the second one, that's what we get. We get a totally changed Loomis, which is awful. But
it doesn't end there. Michael's not dead, obviously. So wrestles Laurie out of the car, takes her inside, is able to crunch Loomis's head, leaves him dead on the floor. There's another cat and mouse throughout the entire house, which is this one was kind of, this one felt to me, I was like, this is dragging on. I'm like, she's like kind of going in here and there.
It felt like an extension of the film. Like the film seemed to end at some point, and then this is just a weird.
Yeah, because these were reshoots,
and it doesn't quite fit. But you're like, okay, I get more Michael and Laurie. I remember being in the theater going like, well, at least I get a little more for my buck. You know what I mean? But she's like in the walls.
Yeah, she's hiding in the walls. She's hiding in the attic. At one point, he gets a 2x4, and he's just like, because the house is decrepit, right? So he's just like
tearing the house apart,
trying to tear it up, trying to get her to come out. It's like trying to, it's a cat and mouse. It's exactly what it is. And it ends with her all bloody and busted up. She is able to get Loomis's gun.
What about the tackle though?
That's what I'm doing. That's where I'm going.
Oh my god!
Where so she gets Loomis's gun and is just like bubbling with blood and all that stuff. And she feels like she got away from him somehow, but she's just like with her back to she's in the second story. She's the back to the window, and Michael's just like looking at her when the camera pans up, and he's just like. He just like stomps and like charges at her, tackles her.
Full spear.
He Goldberg spears her through.
He does.
And they fall to the first floor, and she's still alive miraculously, and he's knocked out. She gets the gun. She's got it pointed to his head, point blank. Pulls the trigger once, nothing. Pulls it again, the camera kind of shakes. I'm like, oh, who's shooting this, Kevin Dunn? And then she pulls it the third or the fourth time, and it goes off because it looks like he reaches for it, and she shoots him in the head, blood all over her face. It just ends with her screaming to high hell. And then there's a little bit of a home video of them as Michael is a young baby holding Boo, and that is how the movie ends.
Yeah, there was an inconsistency with that. The camera shaking once on one click of the gun, and then it's just another one. If you had stayed consistent in that scene, it could have built a lot of tension. It could have been really good, but instead we just get this.
Yeah, she shoots him point blank in the head, and
it's like the chin, right? Like, I mean, that's everything pretty much.
Yeah, well, no, she's aiming at the forehead, but who knows where she shoots him? Well, we do know because there is a sequel.
Yeah.
But Lance, I'll tell you, I do have so much respect for everyone involved in this movie. Watching that behind the scenes documentary, everything that goes into it, from like hiding palm trees because they shot it in Pasadena.
Yeah.
I don't know if we did mention this, but the mask, we did mention that it was introduced when he was a child. When he comes back to the house to get it, it's decrepit. And the first time we see this, which is realistic, if there is a movie, I'm sorry, if there is a mask that has been introduced in one part and then there's a almost 20-year span, the mask it's latex, it gets eaten up. We already know what happens in 4 years of having it under your bed and smoking. I mean, it gets yellow.
What I wonder is, after he killed everyone when he was a little kid, he really took the time to go and put it under the floorboards, the mask and his knife, because when he comes home as an adult, he tears the floors out. So I'm just curious how he got the mask and knife under the floorboards as a kid.
No.
I wasn't even going to bring that up, but since you got
I mean, like, I just had to bring up the idea that the mask we're looking at has moments of where it looks cool. Like there are shots of Michael as an adult that look good. There are, but
it's mostly the shots where in his blacked out eyes. They're not screens; they're just blacked out because of the lighting. But we do get a lot of the under eye in this one as well, and sometimes my wife, my fiance, even kind of says, "Hey, he looks a little doofy."
Yeah.
First she goes, "Oh, he looks really cool," and then the next shot, it's, "Oh, he's actually a little doofy." And why is he so big? And I think because of his head being so huge and the mask being so huge, it took a different.
I mean, he's
shape.
Proportioned for himself.
Yeah,
but that's a 7 foot tall man.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love aspects of this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, what, you like the Danielle Harris part? Okay, fine. Yeah, she's in it and it's great. Right? Who's laughing at me? Why did I do that?
I don't know.
No, but there are like the Joe Grizzly part is something I'll never forget. There's some interesting aspects and cool moments. It's a happy marriage in some parts between Zombie and the original content, but at the same time, it wasn't what we wanted, I don't think.
No, but you did mention there are memorable moments.
Yep.
We just talked about Resurrection last week, and there's nothing memorable about that film. Like, we will never go back and watch it if we don't have to. So, but there are memorable moments here. I said it at the beginning of the show. If it wasn't for the Halloween side, like, I would love to see Rob Zombie do a slasher flick. I mean, he doesn't necessarily do slasher flicks. I wouldn't really call them slasher flicks.
It's like this is more like a monster movie.
Yeah,
it felt like more like a Frankenstein. Not that they're similar stories, but it just felt like this. Like the Hulk of a monster just coming for you, and that's not what Halloween is. But again, this is a reimaging. It's a remake. We get it. We know. Yeah. But if there's something to know about any time you remake anything, you have to give the fans something to appreciate that you care. And to me, a lot of it felt like backstage politics.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't apparent to any of you for this one, get ready for the second one.
Ooh, let's put the buckle on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watched the film. It's a good movie. It's a good horror flick. Not great. There's a lot of trying to fit a lot of different things into something, but it's good. I like it.
Yeah, I wouldn't rank this as the worst, but I would rank it as far as in the Halloween franchises, it's pretty in the middle of the road for me.
Okay, so what's your butcher or your kitchen knife rating then?
Yeah, I don't know, man, because like I've been going back and forth. I like it more than I do Halloween 5. I'll tell you that. I think probably. I know you hate half stars, but I'd probably give it about 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will give it a strong 2.
Yeah. Kitchen knives. 2.5 kitchen knives.
Yeah. If I give anything a 1 or a 0, Resurrection, I don't watch it, probably. Did I give anything a 1 yet?
No, but I am gonna give one a 1 soon.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, trying to legitimize my rating here, but I give it a 2 for the franchise. But I do like it as a horror film. I will watch it again and down the road.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is what a lot of people were introduced to the Halloween franchise. How they were introduced to it. They're like, oh yeah, man, I've seen Halloween, Rob Zombies. And you're like, what? Go watch the original. But yeah, it's fine. It's not. It's fine. It's fine. It's not a terrible. Yeah. First of all, it's like you said, and we're belaboring the point at this point, but it's not a terrible movie. It's just not a Halloween movie.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been Rob Zombie's Halloween. That's Danny. I'm Lance, reminding you to
lock your doors,
bolt your windows,
and go see Joe Grizzly, bitch.
I wasn't expecting that. All right. We'll see you next time for Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Thank you for joining us in our Slasher's Paradise. Peace.